coming out, and thank you so much to Clerk López for hosting us here today. I'm happy to report that everything is running extremely smoothly. And what's great about being a vote-by-mail state is that every registered eligible voter has received their ballot right in their mailbox. And they can research and fill out their ballot from the comfort of their sofa or their chairs at home and drop it off at one of the hundreds of drop boxes across the state. If voters still have a ballot sitting on their kitchen counter, it is not too late. You can drop it off at a drop box or voting center until 7 p.m. this evening. And if you are registered but still want to vote, and even if you are not registered and want to cast a ballot, eligible Coloradans can register and cast a ballot all the way up until 7 p.m. this evening. I want to remind voters that even though this isn't a presidential year, that doesn't mean there aren't important issues on the ballot. From the statewide initiatives to school board races, these are the decisions that greatly affect our communities. Elections, big and small, are how we make our voices heard on important issues. So I encourage every eligible voter who has not yet cast a ballot to do so. This year we have 405 drop boxes and 147 VSPCs available statewide. Voters can go to govotecolorado.gov to find a drop box or voting center close to them. Now, as of 12 p.m., 961,877 voters have already cast a ballot. The breakdown of that is 303,010 Democrats, 314,414 Republicans, and 335,370 unaffiliated. The breakdown between mail ballots and in-person votes cast is 953,566 mail ballots returned and 8,311 people who have cast a ballot in person. In terms of turnout, we expect a lot of people to return their ballots today. Typically, 40% of ballots are returned or voted in person on Monday or Tuesday of Election Day and the day before, of course. So we expect those numbers to increase. Voters again have until 7 p.m. to drop off their ballot or get in line to register and vote. And according to a recent analysis, in the past decade, state turnout reached only 40% once for an off-year election, compared with even-year elections that see upwards of 80% of voters casting a ballot. We also tend to see lower turnout directly following a presidential election year. As compared to similar elections at this point in 2017, there was 869,000 ballots returned, and in 2019, there were just over 1.1 million ballots returned at this point. So this year's election is trending to be on pace with 2017. Tonight, initial results will be reported shortly after polls close at 7 p.m. A reminder that election night results are never official results. In the days after Election Day, military and overseas voters return their ballots, signature discrepancies can be fixed, and bipartisan audits are conducted to determine to a statistical degree of confidence the results. Like any election, there is quite a bit of activity after Election Day. This is just part of it, which will continue. And I just want to remind Coloradans that on top of all the after-election activity that happens, there is a lot of election misinformation. So make sure when you need to know information about the voting process or what happens after Election Day to go to a trusted source of information like govotecolorado.gov or your county clerk for important election information. The foundation of a democracy is that everyday people can decide the future of our communities. In Colorado, it doesn't matter whether you grew up like me in a rural part of the state or if you're from a big city, the amount of money in your bank account or the color of your skin. You can make your voice heard and decide our shared future. So I encourage everybody to get out and cast a ballot if you haven't done so, and make a plan to vote by 7 p.m. today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Clerk López so he can give you an update on Denver's elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And thank you all for being here, and thank you for this opportunity. I want to thank, first and foremost, the voters of this city and this state. You have created a system that is secure, that it's safe, and transparent without compromising access. Access to the ballot box is the defense of democracy. And the folks you see behind me, our election judges, are defenders of democracy. And when we talk about defending democracy, we often think about our uniformed and overseas personnel who are literally defending the democracy. We think about the folks who are in our streets, in our communities, working to make sure that we're honoring civil rights and that we have equity and equality no matter what part of the city or what part of the state you call home. We replicate that with our access to the ballot box. When we say in defense of democracy, this is what we're talking about. Here are your heroes. Here are your real essential workers who, because of their work and because of their dedication, we had a flawless 2020 election, and we will continue to have a flawless, coordinated election today. Now, the other defenders of democracy, we don't have to go overseas. We don't have to duke it out in the streets to fight for our rights. All we have to do is show up and cast that ballot. That is also protecting our democracy. That is also making sure that it's alive and well. And that's what we're asking you to do. Get that ballot that's been sitting on your table, that's been in your purse, that's been hanging out under a bunch of mail. Fill that out. Sign the back of your ballot, and you here in Denver have 41 drop boxes now. Secure drop boxes that you can choose from. You have 11 vote centers if you want to go in person and do it old school. If you want, we have 2 mobile units. One called Hall & Oates and the other one who is yet to be named. I call it Votey McVoteface. They don't like that. They call it voter coach, but it's democracy, right? That's the next election we're going to have is for the name of that mobile unit. But I in all sincerity and in all seriously, I want to make sure folks know that here in Denver, here in the state of Colorado, you have an easy access to the ballot. It is secure, it is safe, it is transparent, and most of all, it's accessible. So do your part to defend the democracy. Turn in your ballot. Not 7:01, not 7 in a few seconds, by 7 o'clock. No later than 7, take your ballot, sign, drop it in one of our boxes, take it to one of our vote centers. And if you have any questions, if you have not received your ballot yet, if you dog ate your ballot, if you need an accessible ballot, o si lo necesitas en español, y todavía no has recibido su boleta, por favor, utiliza nuestra línea 311 option 8. 311 opción número 8. Es súper importante que nosotros salimos a votar, así como las personas atrás de mí, nuestros trabajadores de las elecciones, son dedicados y son defensores de la democracia, así como ustedes, todos nosotros. Si nosotros participamos en esta elección, si votamos, también nosotros somos al defensor de la democracia. Así que, por favor, firme su boleta, entrégalo a uno de los buzones. Tenemos 41 alrededor de la ciudad y también tenemos 11 centros de votación, no más tarde que 7 p.m., plazo final. ¿Ok? Gracias. Thank you.
Good job in English and Spanish. Okay, with that, we're happy to take any questions, either to Clerk López or myself.
Republican disinformation about the 2020 election has led some Republican voters not to cast ballots in this election?
Well, I am incredibly concerned about disinformation, and I was concerned last year also. And that's why Colorado was one of the first states to set up our own unit within my office to combat foreign disinformation, and we're continuing to do that. I think it's incredibly important that elected leaders repeat facts and the truth and not mistruths. But we'll have to see what final turnout is, and I'm sure there's lots of people to determine what were the effects of turnout. But so far, like I said, we're tracking approximately right on track of a typical odd-year election.
You said there are no, excuse me. You said there are no issues, but have you had to specifically check in on Mesa County?
Oh, well, we talk with all our counties all the time. You can ask Paul. We're in constant contact with counties from across the state, assisting them on all types of issues. So no specific issue coming out of Mesa County. Of course, I was very happy to recommend the appointment of my predecessor, Republican Secretary of State Wayne Williams, and the former Republican clerk to supervise this election.
You know, we had record turnout in the state last year, and I know that you all weren't expecting that sort of turnout right now, but is it disappointing just to go through record turnout this evening?
No, it's not at all. Colorado is the gold standard of election access and security, and I think the clerk was spot on in saying how many drop boxes are available just for Denver. So we're on track for a typical odd-year election. Of course, we want every eligible voter to cast a ballot, and I think Clerk López so eloquently illustrated that all of us are defenders of democracy. We are a free people because we get to choose who leads our communities. So I just encourage Coloradans to cast a ballot, and I'm so proud of our election system and of Clerk López's leadership. Would you like to add anything there?
Yeah, actually in Denver, when we looked at the numbers, we're actually on track and trending higher than what we were in a coordinated in 2019. Are we at a presidential level? No, in terms of turnout. But for a coordinated election, especially with the Denver ballot that has 13 questions and school board members, we're trending higher than what we usually are for a coordinated election. Knock on wood, that depends on everybody coming out to vote, and that's why we're doing this, is right, to make sure that folks understand that every single election matters, every single one.
Can you describe what these defenders of democracy are doing exactly?
Yes, these are our election judges, and what this is part of our ballot processing. So these are, your ballots come in your envelope folder. When your signature is scanned, your ballot, the actual envelope and the ballot separate to never see each other again. It's really so sad. But instead, those ballots need to be flattened so they can move on into the process. And so what our election judges are doing is doing ballot preparation and flattening those ballots. And it's just part of the process. Normally, this is our central vote center, but we moved our central vote center, as we did in 2020, to the web building. And so we're using this space for additional space ourselves out, use masks. We're still under COVID protocol. That's the CDC recommendation. So we want to make sure that the folks who are putting in their time as election judges and doing their civic duty are also protected as well too. So.
En español, hay políticos que no les gusta el voto por correo,
Sí.
porque piensan que es fraude. En Colorado y en Denver, ¿es seguro el voto por correo?
Claro que sí. Go ahead.
Secretaria.
Pues a ver si puedo responder en español. Pues el voto por correo es muy seguro y en Colorado hemos usado este tipo de votar por años, desde el 2013. Y ha ganado candidatos republicanos y demócratas, y con este sistema Colorado es considerado el estado más seguro en todos los Estados Unidos para votar. ¿Me salió bien?
Sí, muy bien.
Y puedo decir que el voto por correo, disculpe, es muy fácil, es seguro. Son boletas de papel, así que no son en un programa, un sistema donde una persona puede decir, pues se acabó, ahí se desaparecieron. No, nosotros tenemos boletas de papel, este es parte de nuestro sistema y esa es una razón que es seguro, y también es que es automático. Uno no debe de pedir su boleta, le llega cada año. Nomás es importante, si uno es mayor de 18 años para votar hoy, o se cumple o 18 hoy, si no le ha recibido su boleta por correo, márcanos. 311, opción 8, hasta 7 p.m.
And for voters who are not in Denver that need information about voting centers or how to register any election information, you can go to govotecolorado.gov. And that in español is vayabotarcolorado.gov.
Qué bueno tener una secretaria que habla español.
Gracias. Any other questions? Yes.
Been more difficult this time around just getting people engaged, and how do you do that? How do you work?
I'm glad you asked that question because you normally see the peaks and valleys, and you saw in 2020 where we had very high turnout, and that's because folks were spending money on the waves. I mean, you couldn't get away from hearing from the presidential election, and then you also saw a lot of people who helped us fight that disinformation. You saw organizations and companies and folks say step up and vote, right? You heard it on late night talk shows. I'm not going to say which one because I know that'd be picking favorites amongst you guys, but it's a culture of participation, and it's that culture of participation every single year. And we engage people not just by having folks come to us, but we go to two communities. Every single zip code, we've created an engagement, an outreach program here at Denver Elections in my office, specifically to make sure that no matter where you live in this city, somebody is going to communicate to you, not just through Twitter, not just through Facebook or social media, but in your pulpit at church, in your community organization, on the street at a trick or trunk or treat, right? We're engaging on every single level that we can so we can get to folks and so they know and understand how easy it is to vote, but also so they could take action to register to vote and to participate.
I think Clerk López is exactly right on that. We saw a huge growth of disinformation from our foreign adversaries in 2016. That continued through 2018, 2020, and has now been domesticated in a large extent. It's chipping away at confidence, laying the groundwork for voter suppression laws that we've seen across the nation. And we have to push back with good information and communicating to people where they are. But one thing that is so great about Colorado is that even though we're seeing the attacks on democracy across the nation, Colorado has stopped those attacks. We have supported and protected our vote by mail for all system, early voting, same-day voter registration, voting centers, the bells and the whistles that we have. And even with the push of trying to clamp down on voting rights, we're keep on moving forward. That includes passing legislation to support multilingual Coloradans, having more security grants for counties, streamlining registering to vote, and all those pieces of legislation done this year with bipartisan support. And we're holding the line when we see attacks on democracy. We killed 5 bills to suppress the vote this legislative session. I was the first Secretary of State in the nation to prohibit fake third-party election reviews, and most recently the quick action we took in Mesa County. So all Coloradans, Democrat, Republican, and unaffiliated alike, should have confidence that their voice is heard, because that's what we're working for every single day.
Have any notable trends or patterns emerged so far regarding voter turnout?
I think we'll have to see when polls close, but so far things are going very smoothly, and it looks like it's on trend of a typical odd-year election. Any last questions? Okay. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for covering this. Thank you to
Thank you.
Clerk López.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
And thank you everybody here. We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.